Welcome to the PIO Podcast, a place for everything public information related for police, fire, EMS, and local governments.
It was a good learning experience for a lot of us that social media is not real life.
But we have to remember the media are very rarely a target audience. They're simply that conduit.
Our words have impacts on individuals, and it may not be positive. So just being thoughtful and mindful of the words that we speak.
I think what's so interesting about this position too, and this job and this profession, is that every one of us is looking for purpose, and when we find it here, that's it.
To know is that a crisis for one is not necessarily a crisis for another.
Hello everyone, I hope you like our content. If you would be so kind to click the link at the bottom of the show notes to support the show. Either provide a one-time donation or even a monthly donation. Any amount helps. Thanks. Enjoy the show.
Good afternoon. Today on the PIO Podcast, we have Hillary Mintz. She's a public information officer from Waukesha County in Wisconsin. Hillary, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you on. I'm always looking for interesting guests to come on, and somehow I came across you doing something on LinkedIn, and I'm like, oh, she's got some interesting stuff that she's doing. I want to find out more about you. So you are a former reporter, and you're now the PIO in Waukesha County. So let's talk about your background first for our listener.
All right. So born and raised in Philadelphia, and I attended the University of Iowa on a tennis scholarship in 2003. Studied communications and journalism there. From there, I always knew what I wanted to do. I grew up watching local news, and I always wanted to be where the action was. And there was a lot of action in Philadelphia. Different culture out in the Midwest, so that was interesting to get used to. But traveled all around the country with the tennis team. It was the best experience of my life. I met my future husband there. So I became a Midwesterner. After graduating, I went just down the road to an area what's called the Quad Cities for my first TV job. And I spent about a little less than a year there. Was shooting and editing and everything. We call it a one-man band. So I did that for a little less than a year. Got a second TV job back in Des Moines, Iowa for about 2 years, and then came to Milwaukee in 2010 to work for the ABC affiliate here. And I was there for 12 years, left TV about a year ago, and here I am as the Waukesha County Public Information Officer.
Outstanding. So I want to talk about your transition, about moving from the news media to the other side of the mic, as we say it. Can you talk about that transition and how's it feel to work on the other side?
Yeah, it's a great question. I get asked that all the time. I went from a news gatherer to a news maker. And I can tell, I was dealing with PIOs as a reporter almost on a daily basis, from mostly law enforcement to healthcare to municipalities, local government. And I developed some incredible relationships with PIOs. I also ran into, but the majority were public information officers who didn't understand journalism, didn't understand deadlines. Basically, probably it seemed like they saw us as the enemy, did not want to be forthcoming with information. And so I saw the good and the bad. And public information is a very natural transition from TV to local government. But there aren't a lot of jobs because law enforcement doesn't, at least around here, doesn't use civilian PIOs anymore. They used to. So there aren't a lot of these opportunities. But when this one, came up, I live in this county, so I know it well. And so it was just the absolute perfect fit for someone who's in TV news. I still kind of basically say we're still delivering news. It's just more of a focused beat here in Waukesha County. So I feel like delivering important, critical news on a daily basis, just doing it from a different way.
Okay, so besides your training in journalism and so on, did you take any other kind of training?
Yeah, so I've done the FEMA public information. I did the basic to the advanced. They had it in our area here, the advanced week-long training. So yeah, I've done that. And those were really great classes, because while I felt like for some people in the class, handling, the media calling, reporters calling, and that's very new to them. That stuff was very, I knew that really well. It was a lot of the crafting messaging, message development, strategic communication messaging. A lot of that stuff was really helpful for me to learn about from this side now, as we prepare and practice to handle emergency situations here in Waukesha County.
Really quick, I don't think we said this before. I should have asked this before. Waukesha County, where is it located? What's the population? How many employees do you have working for you there?
So we're about 15 miles west of downtown Milwaukee. We're in what's called Southeast Wisconsin. About an hour west of here is Madison. We're the third largest county in the state of Wisconsin. We've got Milwaukee is number 1, Dane County, which is the Madison area, is number 2, and Waukesha is number 3. We have about 1,400 employees here.
Okay. So what, and third, I'm really amazed at the third largest population in the state.
Yeah, we have
That's
a little
amazing.
over 400,000 residents.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay. So what significant events or activities are you responsible for in your office? And let me ask you this, are you a one-woman band, or are there a couple people there?
So I am the primary public information officer for the county. I work in the county executive's office. The county executive is an elected official, the leader of our county. Milwaukee, most of the larger counties have a county executive. The municipalities have mayors. We have a county executive. So I not only handle all media relations for the county executive, I handle all of the communications, internal and external for Waukesha County. With that being said, we have 17 departments, and we have some large departments. So thank goodness I have some help. Our 2 largest departments are Health and Human Services, which has many divisions, including public health. We have a sheriff's department. They are probably the only department that kind of acts the most independent. They have a lieutenant who is a public information officer. But the other 16 departments, we all work collaboratively on, any and all, any interviews that our staff's going to do, any earned media, news conferences we're hosting, anything like that, that all kind of comes through me. So we meet monthly, my communications team. I have sort of a representative from each department. We meet monthly. For most of them, communications, social media is not their primary function in that role. Many of them act as a liaison to kind of bring back the information we shared our monthly meeting to their departments. However, one thing that we're really boosting is I'm really arming them with the tools and the knowledge to create awesome video content, because they all have social media channels, and now I'm kind of helping them, create story ideas and create content. And that's been a really fun to work with them, and they're all on board, and I'm constantly pushing them to do more and more and more, but we're getting there.
So you're personally are doing the video and stuff, or showing them how to get the video content together? That's a lot of work.
Believe it or not, everything is my phone. Everything. I have a digital camera, but when I was in news, every day out on a story, it's just feeding the beast, social media, feeding that. And so, yeah, we all use our cell phones. We've got mics, that we, I just don't, on social media, the quality, an iPhone is pretty good these days. So it certainly gets the job done.
And especially if you have one of those Bluetooth lapel mics that you can pop on somebody, it makes it certainly much easier. The sound quality is much better. You don't get the air.
And it's those little things that I've taught my department, like these are $30. You know, we spend money very, very cautiously here in local government. And so it's a small investment, but a big difference, you know, because when you're doing interviews outside, I mean, you can't have wind blowing through and you can hardly hear. And, you know, I know nobody watches really videos with audio these days anyway, but if they do, it makes a big difference.
So you're throwing all the captions and all that stuff on there as well?
Yeah. I mean, we're having fun with it. I mean, and that's the beauty of it, and it doesn't have to be, you know, structured. I mean, it's kind of anything goes.
So what kind of social media platforms are you guys running across the county?
So I manage a few. You know, we've got some main county pages. The county executive has a page. We just launched a Waukesha County government Facebook page, which is solely dedicated to public information. We have, I'm personally on Twitter, X, county execs on X. Many of our departments are on there. But one thing we've really learned and focus on is that in a big emergency, I mean, there has to be one source, not 16 different sources tweeting out or sending out information. So we created this really objective Facebook page dedicated to public information that's, you know, kind of the official source of information. We also have Nextdoor, which is very popular as well. So yeah, there's some of those ways we reach the community.
And I'm assuming with the storms that happened in about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, you were using that to communicate?
Yeah, I mean, luckily we've dodged some severe weather so far this summer. Not over yet.
Knock on wood.
We've had a pretty wicked winter event where we had like 16 inches of snow. We had to open an emergency warming shelter because it was like a double whammy. I mean, not only did we have, you know, more than a foot of snow, it was below zero, and we had power outages. So it's dangerously cold, and nobody can move because we have so much snow. And so that was definitely significant that we dealt with.
Yeah, the rest of the country does not understand the Midwest when we explain that the temperature change can be a 70-degree switch, and we can go through all seasons simultaneously in one day.
Yeah, it's well, there's an expression here. They say if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. So, and
good point.
You know, yeah. So yeah.
All right, Hillary. So one of the things that I caught when I was doing a little bit of research to interview you was an initiative that you were involved in was the fentanyl crisis in Waukesha County. Can we talk about that and what kind of sparked that and your involvement in it?
So it really began before I started here. In 2022, County Executive Paul Farrow declared fentanyl a community health crisis. And that was a very relatively new thing at the time. You know, we were coming out of COVID in 2020, and, you know, opioid overdoses were just skyrocketing. And they were impacting so many families in our community that the county executive just felt like something had to be done. We need some more resources. So he declared it the health crisis. And from there, what that really launched was once we started getting some opioid settlement money, our Health and Human Services Department were pouring so much of that into prevention and intervention. And, you know, we kind of launched off of the campaign, One Pill Can Kill, and Narcan Saves Lives. We have these boxes that are called oak boxes. What's inside it, they're overdose aid kits. And what's inside of them is Narcan, gloves, fentanyl test strips. And these boxes, we put them all over the county, in like 200, you know, private businesses, our parks. We have them here in the county offices, courthouse. We wanted to make, there's a couple of things. We wanted to make Narcan as accessible as possible. We wanted to train people how to use Narcan. It's a nasal spray. And we wanted to reduce that stigma of using Narcan. There are certainly divided thoughts on Narcan, but at the end of the day, it is a medication. It's a life-saving medication that we want to put in the hands of everybody. And that has been a tremendous, it's been well received since we've really launched all of this awareness. And yeah, that continues to this day. What we're seeing, the latest numbers from our medical examiner's office, is currently, like, from now to when we were at our peak, I mean, we're down about 35% in deadly overdoses, which is a really good sign. So we're just trying to get as much awareness as possible. We also did a video series with a production team, again, using that opioid settlement money. We had a production team and we spent months. We brought in, they're on our website, which we can, share maybe, but they focus on mothers who have lost their children to overdoses. They focus on people who have recovered from using opioids, and from first responders who are on the front lines and see this on a daily basis. And it was a really eye-opening experience. I was a part of it in that I was interviewing many of the participants. And they did this willingly, the participants, sharing some really difficult stories and times in their life. But hopefully, all you can hope is that somebody hears it and it impacts one person's life, right?
Let's take a quick break. When you think about propaganda, you probably think about Kim Jong-un and his funny little haircut. And you'd be exactly right. The podcast, This is Propaganda, doesn't want you to believe that. They want you to question the ads you see, the news you read, the brands you love. What they don't want you to question is that they are advertisers themselves, peddling the same tricks they claim you fall for to make a living. If you need something to boycott, look no further than this show. Don't listen to This is Propaganda.
And now, a word from our sponsor. In today's climate, you need to be able to communicate, whether you're communicating to those you serve, your peers, or your constituents. Whether you're looking for professional development or to work with a professional, John Guilfoyle Public Relations has you covered. From crisis communications to website development, visit our website at jgpr.net or call us directly at 617-993-0003 to get started today. We'll help you tell your story strategically. Now let's return back to our episode.
So Hillary, have you done any kind of collaborating on a regional level with the other communication professionals for emergencies and other crises?
Yeah, so one thing that is brand new that we're launching is a joint information system within Waukesha County. And that is comprised of many agencies. We've got villages, towns, law enforcement, healthcare, schools. So what we're doing is basically building an all-star team. We are gathering everybody. If there was an emergency that impacted multiple municipalities, and say Waukesha County was the lead in communications, this is a collaborative way to get everybody together, to get communication out as quickly as possible, and form coordinated messaging. Because I'm sure, as you know, when you've got multiple agencies involved, things can get messy in a hurry. And so but this is how you get ahead of it, right? So we're building this system, and our hope is the goal is that we're going to have this up and running before the Republican National Convention in our neck of the woods here in 2 weeks. Basically, what this would do is, if an emergency happens, we send out an alert sends through our 911 dispatch center. It lets you know what's going on, checks your availability, and then we direct you to a team site virtually where we can start the conversation going, figure out next steps. And that happens immediately when an emergency is happening. So that's kind of what we're doing here in Waukesha County.
Oh, that's awesome. And that was going to be my next question. Are you going to be impacted by the RNC? And pretty
Yes.
much from what I'm understanding, just about every municipality in the region over there is going to be affected because delegates are going to be staying at hotels all through the region.
Yeah, absolutely. Myself and two of my colleagues are going to be, we have a position in the Joint Information Center, which is going to be downtown near the convention, run by the United States Secret Service. That's made up of many agencies, communication staff, from local to federal. We're all going to be in this location during the convention. It's a 24/7 operation, and we're all kind of taking different 8-hour shifts. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those, I don't know if you recall, but we had the Democratic National Convention, which never really happened here in Milwaukee. We were the host city, but it never really happened. So there was a ton of planning that went into that, we took some of that for this, but we've never hosted a convention here. So I think definitely for myself, I don't know quite what to expect, but a lot of talk. It's all the buzz here. And yeah, I think, I hope, downtown Milwaukee will be kind of, sectioned off. There's a lot of security checkpoints. Out here in Waukesha County, if you don't have anything to do with the convention, it probably won't impact anybody's life. So, but yeah.
That'll be a great experience to do that. Anytime anybody can get involved in a joint information center involving a national security event, I mean, what you're going to see and experience, just let alone in that room and the grand operation of it all, it's one in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think as a news reporter, we always kind of got to be behind the scenes, and which was the part I loved. And so I get very geeked out by being behind the scenes with an event of this magnitude.
Outstanding. Hillary, you collaborated with the City of Waukesha Police Department on critical incidents and officer-involved shootings. How did that come about? How did it come about, and what was the purpose of the effort?
So during my years of reporting, I talked about the relationships I had with public information officers. The City of Waukesha, which is just down the road, I developed a very, very good relationship with their public information officer, who's a captain with the police department. So when I came over to the county, city county, we work together, right? So when I came to the county, I was approached to help out with this. They had never done this before. Basically the intent was, it was for training purposes, internal training videos, to really break down an officer involved shooting or critical incident. What it involved was interviewing the officers who were involved in the critical incident. And nothing was really off limits. We sat down for, probably an hour with each of them. And just what they wanted to hear was, what were they feeling? What were they thinking? What did they see? What did they hear? To really take someone through that experience. So when officers in training are listening to this, something might resonate with them. The next time they have a millisecond to decide on something, maybe something they heard in one of these videos, maybe something they heard one of the officers say could save their lives or someone else's. So for me, it was interesting. So I teamed up with the city, their videographer, and over the course of months, we did like 3 officer involved shooting events from like 2019 to 2022. One was a domestic call. One was a shooting inside of a school. And another one was responding to, it began as a mental health check for someone. And they certainly can escalate quickly. And it was I covered some of them from the other side, and you never got to really hear the details like I got to hear. And so that was a really, I think there was a level of trust, as I was interviewing these officers. And certainly when you know something's internal, and I mean, I think there was definitely more, they were more comfortable revealing details. And we would go through body camera footage, and they would walk me through kind of everything they were feeling and seeing. And yeah, and so they used it for a training session for officers, and it was just a great project to be a part of.
So were they taking? So I'm assuming it's just training internally. They weren't turning around and outputting a critical incident briefing video or anything like that, were they?
No, this was just going to be used for in-service for, but they had, you think about how many officer-involved shootings you hear about, on the news. I mean, they had never done a video series like this before, a video debrief. And for some of these guys, this had been a few years. And we also had the Waukesha Police Department and many others around here work with a mental health care team, where anytime there's a incident, they contract with these healthcare professionals, and they show up there on scene. And because tackling the mental health aspect of it is also a relatively newer thing that we know now is beneficial to dealing with right away. So while we were doing these interviews, because it had been some length of time for some of these officers, they were right there with me, and there were tears during some of these interviews, because there would be triggers. There would be things that the officer said or saw that brought back emotions. And so the healthcare professionals, we use them in the video too to kind of explain why that happens, the physiological part of why that happens, and what you can do to kind of work through that.
Right. Yeah, what's one of the things that I'm seeing more and more agencies are doing more critical incident briefings, so that they get out in front of the shooting or the incident with their version of the video, showing the body camera video, giving the perspective of the view of the officer and so on. What I've seen, the benefit of that is it does help reduce a narrative of misinformation that may come out. So I don't know if that's something you would want to talk to them about to do in the future. I'm not saying you would do that. That would be the police department's responsibility. But those are things that I see more and more that there definitely is an advantage to getting out in front of a critical incident in advance.
I think that it's getting better. I think there was such an outpouring of demand for it, and like I said, it's getting better. I don't know if we're completely there yet, but yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, being an agency that is, the taxpayers are paying for that body camera, okay, and good or bad, you have to own up to it. And right. The sooner you can do that, the better in the long run it will be, as far as being hounded with questions.
Right. Hillary, what advice would you have for somebody who wanted to leave the position in the news media and become a public information officer?
I mean, if you have a passion for public service and want to still deliver critical news, it's a great way to do that. You still work a lot with journalists. You're still, I still watch the news every morning. I still need to know what's going on in our community every day. I like knowing what's going on, but I also, need to know for my job as well. Yeah, it's a really natural transition if you're still kind of a newsie and want to be a part of that world. TV news is not the most family friendly business when it comes to schedules. So this is much more family friendly. But at the same time, we know that an emergency could happen at any moment, and we may have to leave our families. So that's also, something you have to accept as well.
Right. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just, I've really loved this position. I feel like I'm learning new things, continuing to do new things every day. And I've been lucky that I can kind of make it my own as far as where we're taking this, with social media and the content we're putting out there. And yeah, it's just been fun.
Yeah, and Hillary, everything I've seen you guys are doing there in Waukesha County is awesome. I'm sorry, Waukesha is awesome. You got everything. I constantly see you posting something, which is amazing. And the amount of content that you guys put out, kudos to you for, working across multiple departments, and you're doing it pretty much all yourself on the content side. So that's awesome.
Yes, thank you very much.
Let's switch into some rapid fire questions. Texting
All right.
or talking?
Talking.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Adult drink of choice?
Something like a spicy cucumber martini or something.
Okay. Guilty pleasure food?
Deep dish pizza.
Wow, you should come to Chicago more often. What would be your superpower if you could have one?
Read minds.
Ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
Beg for forgiveness.
What place would you like most to travel to?
Hawaii.
Who would you choose if you could have coffee with any figure, living or dead?
Neil Armstrong.
Oh, interesting. You want to know if he actually went there, right?
My father was a huge, watching the moon landing, grew up, those were his heroes. So, that's what happens when you're your parent, you become, fascinated with space as well.
My grandfather worked on the Apollo mission, so
wow.
Yeah, so it's cool stuff. What key points would you? I'm sorry.
Story, James Lovell. We have a street named after him in downtown Milwaukee, and I got to meet him and interview him during my TV time. He was in town for, I think, U.S. Naval Week or something, and awesome experience.
Oh, that's awesome! Anytime you can meet a figure like that, such a great life experience. They have something like that. What key points would you like our listeners to take from today's interview?
I think if you're a public information officer, I would really stress on building relationships with your local journalists. I was really fortunate that when I came into this position, they were my competitors, when I was out on the field as a reporter, but it was not cutthroat and we were friendly, and that I now work with them, my former competitors, almost on a weekly basis. They cover so much of the amazing things that are happening here in Waukesha County. So developing relationships, you don't need to be afraid of journalists. You have to build relationships. That's what it's all about.
Yep. How can people best reach out to you if they want to connect or follow up on anything that they've heard today?
We can put my email perhaps somewhere, but also I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, or if you follow our Waukesha County Government Facebook page, I'm the one responding to messages. So,
and I'll add all that in the show notes, so don't worry about it. Yeah, that's good. I just want to make sure that whatever best for you. I don't put any phone numbers out there. That's the last thing you want to do.
Yes.
Hillary, thank you very much for being on the show.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Robert.
That's all for this week. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified on the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows you to leave a review, please give us a review. Any review is appreciated. To support our efforts with the PIO podcast, you can click on the support button in the show notes, and any donation is appreciated. Thank you.